Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Morning Sports Report. It is a Trib Live Radio morning show. Josh Taylor here with you in studio, joined by Jerry DePaula, Trib beat writer for Pitt. And Jerry, the big story of the day coming into this morning, it is official, and we just talked about this a week ago, which makes it even more perfect timing. The ACC has finally set up their own network, but here's the good news is the ACC network is coming. The bad news is it's not coming for about another 3 years. It'll be a digital platform for the next 3 years, and then it'll finally be its own television network come 2019. But they are partnered with ESPN, and it's an important thing because it's a 20-year deal, which goes through the 2035-2036 academic year. So we're talking about 20 years here for this deal, but 17 of it will be the TV side. But like we said, it's actually happening, so at least it's a step forward.
Yeah, and the ACC has talked about this for a long time. I remember the first time I went to the ACC spring meetings in May in 2013, the year Pitt joined the conference. Commissioner Swafford, said, we're working on this. We're negotiating with ESPN. We hope to get this thing done soon. That was 2013. Here we are 3 years later, and they finally, worked it out with ESPN, but it's going to be 3 years from now. So what you're going to have is a network eventually starting in August of 2019, in which the ACC games and all sports are going to be televised. It's going to be modeled pretty much after the Big Ten network, which I can get on my cable, or the SEC network. The SEC network has a talk show with Paul Feinbaum, the guy who covers SEC, the SEC insider. So they're going to probably have things like that, plus all the games. I mean, if there's a good ACC game that isn't going to be televised by ESPN or by ESPN or another network, it'll be on the ACC network. So Pitt will have more opportunities to be on TV beyond that silly ESPN3 thing that nobody can really get. So it's going to be good for Pitt. Each school is going to get more money than they've got in the past. I think the last ESPN deal was worth $20 million per school. Wouldn't surprise me if this is going to, maybe not double that number, but make it enhance that number and put Pitt and the ACC up to where the SEC and the Big Ten are as far as revenue generated and the ability to attract eyeballs. And
that's important when you're talking about trying to understand how much revenue helps as far as the team bringing revenue in. Like if you want a totally different scenario, but something to really use as an understanding measuring stick. West Virginia and TCU are just starting to get the full revenues from being members of the Big 12. Before, the first few years, they got partial revenues, but now they're getting more revenues. If I'm not mistaken, they got a full share this time, which was $30 million of their full share of the conference revenues. So to have just that $10 million increase, it's a 50% increase if you're Pitt. Now, I'm not using that $30 million as an expectation for the ACC, but if you're looking for that kind of increase, even if it's to 35 or 40 million a share, so if you're talking between 50 to 100% revenue growth just from this TV deal happening, that's actually a pretty big deal for Pitt moving forward.
College football is big business.
Exactly.
And Pitt, you've got to give Steve Peterson and Mark Nordenberg, the former chancellor, credit for seeing this, having the vision to get Pitt out of that Big East and into a Power 5 conference where they can reap some of these benefits. If Pitt was, say Pitt was in the AAC, which is the revised version of the Big East with Houston and Cincinnati. Look at Houston now. They're talking to I saw yesterday. They're talking to the Pac-12
while talking to the Big 12 also.
Yeah. Houston wants to get out of the AAC. Pitt would have been in the AAC if not for Peterson and Nordenberg getting them into the ACC in 2013.
And UConn's still there. They're still there.
And Utah would love to be in the ACC, but the Power 5 conferences is where to be. That's where the TV sets are. That's where the money is. That's how you can build your program. It's not just money, but because you got to get the players and got to coach them. But the money helps. And it helps recruit. It helps recruiting. It helps attract not just recruits, but it helps attract good assistant coaches and good coaches and keep coaches too.
Now we want to be clear when we say it'll be a digital network for those first 3 years. It will still be available on the ESPN platforms. ESPN, we talked about ESPN3 and some of the mobile devices and things like that and online. So it won't necessarily, be on screen per se, but they will be using ESPN resources. So there are opportunities where there will be probably more games, more conference games that might not have been televised
Other
that
sports,
might
too.
end up
Other
on
sports.
ESPN, and even in other sports too. Now, we're not talking about every game being televised, but there will be some games here and there that maybe a slot opens up that they're actually able to televise that game in an open slot on ESPN. So we may see some games, even though all of them, even though the network won't be complete, they're using ESPN resources, so it does help them at least get some more exposure in the interim.
Yeah, if Pitt's playing Duke, for instance, late in the season and that doesn't have any conference implications and the major networks don't want to televise it, maybe the ACC network will televise it and people will still be able to see it.
So that's definitely a big thing for Pitt, and we'll definitely keep an eye on how this works going forward here on Triple Live Radio.